My name's Rachel Moore, I'm 27, and for 3 years, I've been living someone else's life. When my flower shop went under, I moved in with my sister to start over. Instead, I became her unpaid nanny. 3 kids, endless chores, no thanks. And just when I thought I couldn't give any more, she dropped a bomb. Another baby on the way. Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Quit your job. Pay rent. Take care of us full time." My blood went cold. That was the night I realized I wasn't their mother, but I was trapped like one. And what happened next? It tore our family apart in ways you won't believe. 6-hour shifts at a downtown diner left me smelling like grease and burnt coffee. My paycheck barely scraped $12 an hour, just enough for a phone bill and bus fare. Nights, I pushed myself through online marketing classes, clinging to a dream of someday running my own agency. But every lecture blurred into exhaustion. By midnight, my laptop screen was a fog, and I'd wake up with drool on the keyboard and nothing accomplished. And Danielle? She worked part-time at a call center, but somehow always had money for takeout and new shoes. Every time I hinted that I was drowning, she'd flash that manipulative smile and say, "You're so good with the kids, Rach. I don't know what I'd do without you." As if it were a compliment. As if it weren't a prison sentence. One Thursday evening, I sat at the kitchen table balancing a stack of bills I couldn't pay when Danielle waltzed in with her new boyfriend, Derek. He smelled like beer and truck oil, and the way he tossed his jacket on the couch screamed arrogance. Danielle's grin was stretched so wide it looked painted on. "We've got news," she said, pulling me off my chair and into the living room. I forced a polite smile, though my stomach already churned. "I'm pregnant," she announced, her voice trembling with fake excitement. "Can you believe it? Baby number 4. Derek dropped a greasy pizza box on the table and smirked like this was a celebration. My jaw locked. Another child, another life that I'd be expected to raise. While my own dreams withered in the corner of a dim apartment, I muttered, "Wow, congrats," but my chest felt like it was collapsing inward. That night, as I scrubbed dishes while Danielle and Derek laughed in the other room, the words replayed in my head like a curse: another baby, another burden. I gripped the sponge until my knuckles turned white. I wasn't sure yet how, but something in me snapped. I couldn't keep living like this, and if Danielle thought I'd just fall in line again, she was about to find out she was wrong. The next morning, chaos erupted before the sun even rose. My alarm shrieked at 5:30 a.m., slicing through the dark like a drill. I dragged myself out of bed, head pounding, and stumbled into the kitchen. Ethan was already there, blasting rap music on his phone while pouring a mountain of sugary cereal. "Turn it down," I snapped, clutching my temple. "It's not even loud," he shot back, smirking as the bass rattled the cupboard doors. Mia stormed in, hair tangled, clutching an empty Pop-Tart wrapper like it was evidence in a crime scene. "Ethan ate mine again," she screamed, her voice echoing off the walls. She slammed the cupboard so hard a glass rattled on the counter. Before I could mediate, Caleb climbed onto a chair, reaching for the orange juice. His little hands slipped, the carton tumbled, and a bright river of juice spread across the counter and dripped onto the floor. "Seriously?" I groaned, grabbing a towel, but Caleb's wide eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean it," he wailed, hopping down as juice soaked his pajamas. I split a Pop-Tart in half, shoved one piece at Ethan, one at Mia, and dropped the towel over the sticky mess. "Eat. Quiet. Please." My voice cracked like a whip. Meanwhile, Mia tugged at my sleeve, whining, "Can you braid my hair?" "I can't go to school like this." Caleb clung to my leg, barefoot, while Ethan rolled his eyes and cranked up the music even louder. By the time I shoved them all into the car, the air was thick with arguments. Ethan slouched in the passenger seat, blasting music. Mia crossed her arms, sulking about math homework. Caleb rattled off questions about dinosaurs at machine gun speed. And over it all, Mia and Ethan bickered about who got the front seat tomorrow. I gripped the wheel tighter, my pulse thudding in my ears. At every red light, I inhaled cold coffee from a travel mug that tasted like burnt smoke. When I finally pulled up to the school, Ethan bolted without a goodbye. Mia slammed the door in protest, and Caleb lingered, looking at me with those big eyes. "Will you be here after school?" he asked softly. I forced a smile. Always. But the word lodged in my throat. Always felt like a sentence, not a promise. As I drove off, my phone buzzed with a text from the diner. We're short-staffed. Can you stay late today? My stomach sank. More hours meant more exhaustion, but saying no meant risking the only paycheck I had. I pulled into the diner parking lot, wiped orange juice from my jeans, and plastered on a fake smile. Another day of serving coffee and swallowing bitterness. But in the back of my mind, Danielle's words from last night replayed. Quit your job. Pay rent. Take care of us full time. The chaos wasn't just in the mornings. It was my entire life, and something deep inside me was starting to scream. I couldn't keep this up much longer. By the time I stumbled back into the apartment that night, my feet throbbed from 10 hours of rushing plates and pouring endless cups of coffee. The smell of fryer oil clung to my hair, no matter how many showers I took. I wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed. But the pile of dishes in the sink greeted me like an enemy army. Danielle wasn't home, of course. She'd left hours ago for another late shift, or maybe out with Derek. The kids sprawled across the living room couch, cartoons flickering across their tired faces. Ethan barked at Mia to pass the remote. Caleb dozed with his head in her lap, his thumb still sticky from popsicles. I tucked them in one by one, whispering reassurances I wasn't sure I believed. When the last light clicked off in their room, I finally opened my laptop. The screen glowed against the dark kitchen, pulling me toward the life I wanted but couldn't touch. Marketing, branding, creativity. I used to imagine myself running a small agency, designing campaigns for local businesses. My old flower shop had been my first taste of building something from scratch, even if it collapsed under debt. Still, the fire hadn't died. Every tutorial video, every assignment, was supposed to be a stepping stone back toward that dream. But tonight my eyes blurred after 10 minutes. The words on the screen might as well have been in another language. I scribbled half a logo concept, then my head drooped forward. The sound of my laptop fan whirring was the last thing I heard before I jerked awake an hour later, neck stiff, battery dead. A quiet shuffle broke the silence. Mia stood in the doorway, her hair messy, holding a stuffed bear. "Why are you so tired all the time?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I forced a smile that tasted bitter. "Just trying to keep up." She walked over and hugged me without warning. For a fleeting moment, warmth flooded my chest. I was needed. But then the truth sliced through that comfort like glass. Needed for what? To keep feeding kids that weren't mine? To play mother while my own life vanished into late nights and exhaustion? The hug ended, and so did the illusion. Over the next few weeks, the pattern hardened. Ethan needed rides to soccer practice. Mia had a dance recital she begged me not to miss. Caleb came down with strep throat, and I spent hours shuttling between pharmacy counters and doctor offices. My savings, what was left from selling off the last remnants of my flower shop, bled away on school supplies and antibiotics. Meanwhile, Danielle drifted in and out, tossing out careless thanks before collapsing on the couch. Derek never offered a dime. Every time I hinted at how thin I was stretched, Danielle brushed it off with the same line. "You're so good with them, Rach." It wasn't a compliment. It was a trap. And slowly, painfully, I realized the truth. The more I poured into her family, the further I drifted from my own future. My dream wasn't just slipping away. It was suffocating under the weight of someone else's life. It was a Saturday evening when Danielle finally dropped her bomb. I was folding laundry in the kitchen, surrounded by towers of mismatched socks and stained t-shirts, when the front door swung open. She floated in, her hand clutched tightly in Derek's. He reeked of gasoline and cheap beer, but his grin was smug, like he owned the room. Danielle's cheeks glowed with a forced excitement I hadn't seen in years. She dropped her purse on the counter and grabbed both my hands before I could react. "We have news," she announced, her voice high and breathless. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. "I'm pregnant," she declared. "Baby number 4. My heart lurched into my throat. Behind her, Derek tossed a greasy pizza box onto the table, as if it were champagne for a celebration. I forced my lips into a stiff smile. Wow, congrats. The word tasted like ashes. Inside, my chest caved in. Another child. Another life I would be expected to raise. Another nail in the coffin of my own future. We sat down to dinner. Pizza slices, paper plates, kids buzzing with curiosity. I pushed food around my plate, my appetite gone. Danielle leaned back, her grin sharp as a knife. That's not all, she added, glancing at Derek. His smirk widened. My fork froze midair. We've been talking, Danielle said slowly. You're so good with the kids, Rachel. We need you to step up more. I blinked, unsure I'd heard right. Step up? Quit your job, she said, casual as if asking me to pass the salt. Focus on the kids full-time. Derek and I are swamped at the call center, and with a new baby coming, we can't handle everything. My chest tightened. Quit my job? My voice dropped low. Derek shrugged, leaning back in his chair. You live here rent-free. The least you could do is cover $300 a month. $4 even. It's only fair. For a moment, the room spun. Quit my job, pay rent, raise 4 kids, sacrifice every scrap of freedom I had left. I'm already doing everything, I snapped, my voice shaking. School runs, meals, homework, doctor appointments, and I'm paying for their clothes and medicine out of my savings. Danielle's eyes hardened, the warmth gone. That's not enough. We need more. You're living in my house, eating my food. You owe us. Oh, the word cut deep. I looked at Ethan, Mia, and Caleb, their eyes wide, caught in the crossfire. Caleb clutched his slice of pizza like it might shield him. I pushed my plate away, my pulse pounding in my ears. I need to think about this, I said, standing before the rage boiling inside me spilled over. Danielle's glare followed me down the hall, sharp as a blade between my shoulders, and in that moment, I knew something had shifted. I could no longer pretend this was temporary. I could no longer pretend I wasn't drowning. Something inside me whispered, if I didn't take my life back soon, it might disappear forever. I slammed my bedroom door and pressed my back against it, chest heaving. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Quit my job, pay rent. Be their live-in nanny. Danielle's words ricocheted in my skull until I thought I'd scream. I dialed Jessica before the courage could slip away. She answered on the second ring, her voice calm but firm. Always the anchor I needed. What's wrong? She asked, sensing the storm in my breathing. They want me to quit the diner, I blurted out, and pay them $400 a month to live here. Like I'm their maid. A long pause. Then her words landed like a hammer. Rachel, they're using you. You're not their mom. You're not their employee. You've given 3 years of your life. You don't owe them another day. I swallowed hard, tears burning my eyes. But the kids? You love them, I know, Jessica said gently. But loving them doesn't mean destroying yourself. Boundaries aren't betrayal. They're survival. I closed my eyes, the truth cutting deep. She was right. I wasn't just tired. I was disappearing. That night, I sat at the kitchen table after everyone was asleep, staring at my battered sketchbook. My hands trembled as I flipped through page after page of half-drawn logos, abandoned ideas, sketches that once sparked joy but now looked foreign. I whispered to the empty room, "Who am I anymore?" The silence answered back with a gut punch. I was a stand-in mom, a ghost of myself. The next morning, I tried to keep routine. I poured cereal, packed lunches, forced smiles, but every movement carried a new edge. When Danielle mumbled thanks on her way out the door, I didn't answer. I wasn't her crutch anymore. That evening, I sat Ethan down at the table, the weight of my decision heavy on my tongue. I need you to understand something, I said, meeting his skeptical eyes. I can't keep doing all of this. It's not fair, to me or to you. He frowned, fiddling with a pen. Because of Mom? Yes, because of Mom. My voice cracked, but I didn't waver. I'll always care about you, Mia and Caleb, but I can't be your parent. That's not my role. For a second, his mask of sarcasm slipped. He looked almost relieved. When he left the room, I picked up my phone and pulled up apartment listings in Chicago. Studios, 1-bedrooms, all way out of my budget. My finger hovered, heart racing, terrifying, impossible, necessary. I whispered the words like a vow. I need my own life. and for the first time in years, I believed it. Over the next week, every spare minute I had went into searching. I sat hunched over my laptop at midnight, the glow lighting up tired lines under my eyes. Studio apartments in Chicago weren't cheap. Most were $1,500 a month, plus utilities. My stomach twisted at the numbers. My savings was just $3,000, scraped together from selling off the last of my flower shop equipment. Enough for a deposit and 1 month's rent. After that, it would be sink or swim. But the thought of staying here, suffocating under Danielle's demands, felt worse than drowning. I started making lists, scribbled on scraps of diner receipts. Rent, $1,500 utilities and food, $500 classes, $200 diner paycheck, barely won $800 a month. It didn't add up neatly, but it was freedom, and I was willing to live on ramen noodles if it meant breathing again. One evening after homework, I pulled Ethan aside. He looked wary, leaning against the counter with that permanent teenage scowl. "I need to talk to you," I said, handing him a notebook. "If I move out, you're going to have to step up. You're 14. You can handle more than you think." His eyes flashed with anger. "So you're just leaving us? Because of Mom?" "I'm not leaving you," I said firmly. "I'm teaching you. You'll know how to make a grocery list, how to cook tacos, how to help Mia and Caleb when I can't be here. You're smart, Ethan. You can do this." He grumbled but didn't argue. He even scribbled a few notes, though his jaw was tight. Later that night, Mia cornered me in her room, her voice small. "Are we too much for you? Is that why you want to go?" My chest ached. I knelt to her level and pulled her into a hug. "No, honey, it's not you. I just need my own space, but I'll always be here for you." Her tears dampened my shoulder, and guilt clawed at me. But I knew the truth. Staying wasn't saving them. It was teaching them dependence on the wrong person. Caleb was harder. At 7, he didn't understand. Over breakfast, he frowned, stirring his cereal. "Who's going to help with my science project?" "I'll still help," I said gently. "Just maybe from my own place." His lip trembled. "Will you still read me stories?" I forced a smile, though my throat tightened. "Always." That night, after tucking them in, I stood in the kitchen, staring at my phone screen lit with rental listings. My finger hovered over a number to call. Fear screamed at me to stop. But the whisper inside me was louder now. You can't keep living like this. And for the first time, I didn't feel trapped. I felt the door creaking open. The tension in the apartment thickened like smoke after I started pulling away. Danielle noticed me scrolling through apartment listings on my phone, and her eyes narrowed. "Planning to bail on us, huh?" Typical. I didn't answer. I couldn't afford another screaming match. 3 days later, I found out silence wasn't enough. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "This is Officer Harris with the Chicago Police Department. We need you to meet us at your sister's address. There's been a complaint." My stomach dropped. "Complaint?" I grabbed my bag and raced across town. When I arrived, 2 officers stood outside the building. Danielle was on the porch, red-faced and furious, pointing at me like I was a criminal. Derek loomed beside her, arms crossed, smirking. "She stole $600 from us," Danielle shouted before I could even speak. "And she trashed our furniture before she left." I froze, shock crawling up my spine. "That's a lie. I didn't take anything." Officer Harris held up a clipboard. "We'll need to see inside." Danielle yanked open the door and marched us into the living room. She pointed at a sofa with a torn cushion. She did this before she stormed out. Then she dragged us to the laundry room, where the washing machine sat silent. "And this broken. She wrecked it on purpose." I shook my head, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. "I moved out clean. I haven't touched your things." The younger officer crouched by the sofa, peeling back the fabric. Old stains and frayed edges stared back at us. "This tear isn't new," he said. "Looks months old." He opened the washer panel, tugged a loose wire. "Wear and tear, not sabotage." Danielle's face flushed crimson. "The money." She knew where I kept it. I stepped forward, my pulse pounding. "Search me. Search my car. Search my apartment. You won't find a dime. Because I didn't take anything." The air crackled with tension, and then a voice cut through it. Steady, shaking, but brave. Mom's lying. We all turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, fists clenched, his face pale but determined. That couch has been ripped since last summer. Caleb spilled juice on it, remember? And the washer broke weeks ago when you overloaded it. The money? You spent it on groceries. I saw you. Danielle's head whipped toward him, her voice a hiss. Ethan, stop! But he didn't. His chin jutted out, his voice rising. Rachel's been more of a parent to us than you ever were. She bought our school stuff. She drove us everywhere. You and Derek were never here. Silence slammed into the room. Even Derek shifted uncomfortably. Officer Harris scribbled notes, his tone flat. Ma'am, false reports are serious. Don't waste our time again. They left, and so did my last shred of illusion. I pulled Ethan aside in the driveway, my voice low, shaking. You didn't have to do that. He shrugged, eyes shining with unshed tears. You don't deserve this. Someone had to say it. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't fighting this battle alone. For a few days after the police incident, Danielle barely spoke to me. She moved through the apartment with sharp glares and slammed doors, muttering under her breath about betrayal. I thought maybe, finally, she'd back off. I was wrong. It was a Sunday morning when my phone buzzed again. This time, not with police. Ethan's name flashed across the screen. His voice was tight, panicked. Aunt Rachel, it's Mom. She's in the hospital. They said it's something with the pregnancy. You need to come. My heart jolted. Despite everything, her lies, her venom, I pictured Mia's wide eyes, Caleb's trembling hands, Ethan's forced bravado. The kids didn't deserve this chaos. I grabbed my keys and drove. At St. Luke's Hospital, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I found Danielle in a stark white room. She looked pale, fragile in a way I'd never seen. No makeup, no fire, just exhaustion etched into her face. A doctor introduced herself as Dr. Patel. Your sister has placenta previa. It's high risk. She needs strict bed rest, possibly until delivery. 3 months. The words hit like a stone. 3 months of someone needing to step in, and I already knew who Danielle expected it to be. Sure enough, Danielle's eyes flickered to mine. The kids, they need you. Her voice was thin, almost pleading. I crossed my arms, my chest tight. The memory of her screaming accusations, calling the cops on me, burned hot in my veins. For a second, I wanted to turn and walk away. But then Ethan appeared in the doorway, his face drawn, his shoulders heavy with a weight no 14-year-old should carry. Mia hovered behind him, biting her lip. Caleb clutched her hand. I knelt beside Danielle's bed, my voice steady but cold. I'll help, but only for the kids, and only on my terms. She frowned, confusion flashing. I keep my job. I keep my apartment. I don't pay you a dime. And this ends when you come home. 3 months, no more. For once, Danielle didn't argue. She was too drained, too cornered by reality. She gave a weak nod. Back at the apartment, the house looked like a storm had hit. Dirty dishes, laundry piles, homework scattered across the table. Derek was nowhere to be seen. He's been out a lot, Ethan muttered, bitterness cutting his voice. Calls it overtime. But he doesn't even check in, I exhaled, the weight settling. Then it's on us. But it wouldn't be like before. This time, I wasn't losing myself in their chaos. This time, I'd hold the line. I gathered the kids around the kitchen table, pulled out a sheet of paper, and started dividing chores. You're the team now, I told them. I'll guide you, but I won't do it all anymore. As they scribbled names beside dishes, laundry, and homework, something shifted. Not much, but enough to remind me I had control this time. I wasn't just surviving their storm. I was rewriting the rules. The first week without Danielle at home was chaos, but a different kind of chaos, one I could actually shape. Instead of drowning silently, I started steering. I gathered the kids around the kitchen table with a stack of sticky notes and a marker. This is how it's going to work, I said, my voice firmer than they'd ever heard. We're a team now. Everyone has a role. Ethan slouched back, arms crossed, but his eyes betrayed curiosity. Mia leaned forward nervously, and Caleb swung his legs under the chair. I wrote out the chores, dishes, laundry, homework checks, grocery runs, and stuck them on the fridge. Ethan, you're old enough to handle laundry. Mia, you're in charge of dishes after dinner. Caleb, you tidy up your room every night. I'll cook and help with homework, but I won't do everything anymore, Ethan scoffed. Mom never makes me do laundry. I met his gaze without blinking. And look how well that turned out. He rolled his eyes. But the next day, I found him shoving clothes into the washer, muttering under his breath. Mia dragged a chair to the sink, scrubbing plates with determination. Even Caleb made a game out of picking up Legos, lining them up like soldiers. For the first time, the house didn't feel like it was collapsing. It felt functional, but not everyone stepped up. Derek was a ghost, drifting in late at night, mumbling about overtime, then disappearing into the garage with a beer. The kids noticed. One evening, Mia's voice cracked as she asked, "Why doesn't he even say goodnight?" I knelt beside her, brushing her hair back. "Because he doesn't know how to be the grown-up you need. But that's not on you." The truth burned. I wanted to scream at Derek, to demand he take responsibility, but I'd learned screaming fixed nothing. My job wasn't to fix him. My job was to protect myself and guide the kids through the storm. Still, the exhaustion threatened. I dragged myself from a 6-hour diner shift straight into homework chaos. Nights, I drove back to my tiny studio apartment, falling asleep at my desk beside half-finished sketches. Jessica called one evening while I was helping Caleb with spelling. "You're doing too much again," she warned. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "It's temporary, just 3 months, and this time, I've got boundaries." "Don't let them blur," she pressed. Her words clung to me. I refused to sleep over at Danielle's place, even when Mia begged. I cooked dinner, helped with homework, then drove back to my own apartment every night. The kids were disappointed, but I knew I had to draw the line. One night as I left, Ethan caught me at the door. "Thanks," he muttered, almost too low to hear. His eyes held something new, respect, and for the first time in years I felt it too. 3 months passed in a blur of late diner shifts, school drop-offs, and carefully drawn boundaries. Against all odds, the system worked. Ethan had grown into his chores. Mia learned to take pride in washing dishes, and even Caleb strutted through the apartment announcing, "Room's clean," as if he'd won a medal. But then the day came. Danielle came home from the hospital, her newborn son bundled in her arms, Derek trailing behind with a sour look. The moment I stepped into the apartment, I knew what was coming. Danielle's eyes locked on me. No gratitude, no humility, just expectation. "Rachel," she said, lowering herself into the couch with exaggerated exhaustion. "We need to talk." I braced myself. "About what?" Her tone hardened. "About continuing what you've been doing. You've managed just fine while I was gone. The kids are stable, the house is running. With the baby, I'll need you to keep helping, at least until we're back on our feet." A hot wave of anger surged up my spine. "That wasn't the deal, Danielle. 3 months? That's all." Her face darkened. "So you're just abandoning us? Again?" I took a step closer, my voice steady though my hands shook. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I've been here every single day for 3 years, carrying responsibilities that were never mine. I love your kids, but they're not my kids. They need their mother, and that's you." Derek snorted, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "You're being dramatic. She just needs a little more time." I turned on him, my voice like ice. "And where have you been, Derek? The garage, the bar? Definitely not here helping." His smirk faltered. Danielle pushed herself up, her newborn wailing in her arms. "You think you're too good for us now? With your little apartment and your silly design classes? You wouldn't survive without me?" I laughed, but it wasn't bitter. It was free. "I've survived in spite of you, and I'm done." Her jaw dropped, the words hitting like a slap. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I'm out, Danielle, for good. I'll be there for Ethan, Mia, and Caleb in the ways I can. But I will not sacrifice my life for your choices anymore." The room went silent except for the baby's cries. Mia peeked from the hallway, clutching Caleb's hand, Ethan standing stiff beside them. Their wide eyes said everything. They were watching, waiting, learning. Danielle tried one last shot, her voice sharp. "If you walk away, don't bother coming back." I met her glare without flinching. "Then consider this my goodbye." I turned, walked out the door, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. My last box was barely heavier than a suitcase, but when I carried it into my tiny studio apartment, it felt like I was hauling away the weight of 3 lost years. The space was small, just a mattress on the floor, a desk pushed against the window, and a kitchenette with squeaky cabinets. But it was mine. I set my laptop on the desk and pinned my old sketches to the wall. Half-finished logos, bold color palettes, little pieces of a dream I'd buried under laundry piles and homework charts. For the first time, I stared at them and felt possibility instead of guilt. Life wasn't easy. My diner shifts barely covered rent, utilities, and groceries. Dinner was often ramen or peanut butter sandwiches. Some nights I sat at my desk with aching feet, wondering if I'd made a mistake. But then I'd open Photoshop, sketching logos for fictional companies, and my chest would tighten with excitement instead of despair. One night, Jessica called. "Hey, I've got a client who needs branding for a bakery. Small job, but it pays." I nearly dropped the phone. "Me? You're sure?" "Absolutely," she said. "You've got talent, Rachel. Don't waste it." I worked until 3 a.m., pouring every ounce of myself into the project. When I sent it off, my hands shook. A week later, the client emailed back with 3 words that made me cry at my desk. "I love it." They paid me $500, more than I earned in a week at the diner. That job led to another, then a website redesign for a local cafe. Slowly, my calendar filled with real deadlines, real clients. My tiny studio transformed into a creative lab, mood boards taped to the walls, sticky notes littering the desk. I wasn't rich, but I was free. I still stayed connected with the kids, but on my terms. Jessica helped bridge the gap, sometimes dropping by their place, sometimes letting them hang out at her shop. I set up video calls twice a week. Ethan showed me his essays, Mia held up her latest dance costume, and Caleb begged me for bedtime stories over the phone. It wasn't the same as living with them, but it was healthier, for them and for me. Meanwhile, word trickled through Jessica that Danielle was spiraling. She'd lost her job at the call center, missed too many shifts during her recovery. Derek eventually walked out, leaving without explanation. The neighbors stopped offering help. The weight she'd tried to throw on me finally landed on her shoulders. I should have felt vindicated, but what I felt was something quieter. Release. One evening, as I sketched a logo under the warm glow of my desk lamp, I realized the truth. My rebirth wasn't just about leaving Danielle's house. It was about reclaiming the person I was meant to be. For the first time in years, the future didn't terrify me. It inspired me. It was a quiet Saturday evening when I finally realized I wasn't waiting for life to begin anymore. I was living it. My little studio smelled like fresh coffee and printer ink. My laptop screen glowed with 3 open projects: logos for a cafe, a yoga studio, and a charity gala. My phone buzzed with messages from Ethan asking about his essay, Mia sending a picture of her dance routine, and Caleb begging for another bedtime story. I smiled, because now I could choose when to answer. I wasn't trapped, I wasn't resentful. I was present, on my terms. Looking back, I saw it clearly. For 3 years, I had carried a burden that was never mine. I thought love meant self-sacrifice, that caring for Danielle's kids required erasing myself. But love without boundaries isn't love, it's a cage. When I finally said enough, I expected guilt to crush me. Instead, I felt lighter, stronger, because boundaries don't push people away. They teach them where respect begins. Danielle's world was unraveling, and part of me wanted to swoop in and fix it like before. But I didn't. Because every time I logged into a client call, every time I sketched another design that carried my name, I proved to myself, and to the kids, that survival doesn't mean servitude. It means building a life you don't need to escape from. And maybe that's the lesson I want to leave with you. If you've ever carried someone else's load so long it felt like your own, pause. Ask yourself, is this love or is it exploitation? Are you helping or are you disappearing? You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to build something that belongs only to you, because boundaries are not walls. They are doors. Doors you choose when to open and when to close. I'm not perfect. I still worry about Ethan, Mia, and Caleb. I still ache when I hear their voices crack with disappointment. But I've learned I can love them without losing myself. And that's the difference. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt stuck in someone else's storm, take this as your sign. It's not selfish to step out. It's survival. It's the first step to becoming who you were meant to be. Drop your story in the comments if you've ever had to draw a line with family. I want to hear it. And if you're still carrying that invisible weight, let this be the push to finally put it down. Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because your life matters too.